Hey everyone, this is me, the Undead Viking, and this is Amazing Jungle Run, a game that I was sent by the same designer that did a game that I reviewed about a year or so ago called Seven Ghosts, which I really enjoyed. And this is one of those fun things where I was able to review the very first game this person ever made, and now they have this brand new game that they've designed and they've created, and they shared it with me. And it's kind of fun to see, like, you can kind of tell where Keith, the designer of the game, started with his original game, and how he's now building upon that as a designer and creating maybe on the stepping stones of their first game, and then elevating themselves and changing the game up and creating something new and exciting, but you can kind of see the bare bones still there. So Jungle Run is a game, I played this 2, 3, and 4 player, and this is a game with some fantastic art where the players are going to be trying to collect different types of animals and also different types of like jungle fruits. And why I guess there is a shaman card as well. But as they collect these cards, they're going to earn points, and whoever can earn the 9 points first is going to be the winner of the game. So this isn't a game where you're like it's over after a certain number of turns. It's over when one person has scored 9. So the interesting conundrum that players have is like what they're going to do on their turn and try to make sure that they maximize their turn to the best of their abilities at that time. It is a game that definitely at first blush you kind of like think, okay, I kind of get this game. It seems to be more on like the filler range of difficulty, but once you start playing the game and you realize all the different elements as far as the secret information and also kind of a little bit of bluffing going on, and also some memorization, and also just a tiny bit of take that as well, you can tell that there's a lot more to this game than when you first expected. So let me show you how Amazing Jungle Run is played, and then we'll come back here and I'll give you my final thoughts. Awesome. Alright, so here we have Jungle Run. I'm going to show you how the game is played. Now, I've gone ahead and set up the game. This is for like a 2-player game, but the game does play well with more 2, 3, or 4 players. And this is a game in which the first person to 9 points is going to win. Now, you see that there are these 3 different types of cards. You have these resource cards. I'll talk about those in a little bit. Peril cards. Once again, I'll talk about those in a little bit. And then you have these cards here in front of you. Now, these cards are separated into 4 separate decks, and these are the cards that you are going to be collecting as the game moves on. You can see some of them have these animals on them, some have these fruits on them, and you can notice the fruit cards have both points and they have these symbols below. Now, I'll talk about that in a little bit when we get to the actual phase of the game when you collect these cards. But just bear in mind the game does have 3 separate dice that have the multiple symbols on it, and you've probably surmised that when you roll the dice and you actually match the symbols with the card that you want to collect, you then would be able to collect the card and add it to your collection. Remember, 9 points is how you win the game, so that's your goal. But you can't just pretty much just go after point cards all the time, because there are different actions and different powers that people can use to delay you or prevent you from getting certain cards or slow you down on your turns, and then you'll be wanting to collect these other types of cards as well as the game progresses. Now, a game of Jungle Run has 3 phases to each player's turn. And the first phase is the action phase. During the action phase, you normally were going to get 2 actions, and you can do one thing where you can take a resource card for 1 action. You can take a peril card for 2 actions, or you can peek at the bottom of one of these main decks as an action. Now, the top cards of these main decks are all like flipped over like so you can see it, but the cards below are the ones that you don't know what they are. I should also mention that when you do set up the game, you deal these cards out in 4 separate stacks, but you do load the bottom of each one of these stacks with the cards that are going to be worth 2 or possibly even 3 points if you're able to collect them. That's to kind of keep the higher value cards below. But because you're able to peek at the cards below, and plus you get to, through certain powers that the cards will give you, you get to manipulate where those cards are, you are having the knowledge of what the card is underneath is going to be very, very important if you want to be successful. After you've done with your 2 possible actions, and there are situations where you'll have less of those actions, but I'll explain that in just a little bit. You are going to have a situation where now you're going to move into the manipulation and collecting phase. Now, during the manipulation and the collecting phase, you will, as you probably guessed, you're going to be manipulating the cards and collecting them. There are certain resource and peril cards, and I'll talk about more about those cards, as I said, in a little bit, allow you to manipulate the decks in some way, but then you can collect cards. Now you have 2 choices. You can collect common cards like this like toucan here or this hippo, and you can collect them. Now if there's matching, if this was a hippo here and there were 2 hippos, you could say I'm going to collect the hippos, and you collect both of those hippos. Having 3 of a kind of one of these animals is very important because it gives you some special powers, and when you turn them in, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But you'll also notice that some of these cards, and both of these have it, they have the image of that resource card up there. So if you do take those, that allows you to take a resource card for free. So that actually, is kind of a nice little gift when you take those cards. However, if you want to go after one of the cards that has one of these symbols, as you probably had guessed, you're going to roll these dice and you're going to be trying to match those symbols. I didn't match them, but if I had rolled that, for example, I'd have these 2 green squares. I'd be able to collect that particular watermelon there, and it's gonna be worth a point, and I'd put that in front of me. And so people will know I have a point. You can kind of keep track of how many points people have as the game progresses, but it's one of those things where people can surprise you. You might be saying, oh, they're only at 6 points or so, but there's that shaman card that's going to be worth 3 points. If they can somehow collect that, they can still win the game. So you must stay on your toes throughout the game to make sure that while you yourself are trying to get to 9 points, you got to make sure you are able to stop the other players from getting those 9 points as well. Now you notice that I haven't automatically flipped that card over. You normally aren't going to flip that card over until you get done with your manipulation and collecting phase. But once that's done, you would turn that over and reveal that to the other players. Now this is the phase, and see there's a hippo. Now the next person who goes, they'd be able to collect those 2 hippos on their turn. Now here's one of the things I really like. I love reveal moments in games. Anytime where you're turning a card over and showing a card and everybody's kind of like, ooh, what's going to come up next? Those are the type of things that keep people paying attention to the games and getting excited about what the game is doing and what their possible next turn. Especially if you're like the next person to go, you're going to be excited to see what those cards have. So if somebody took those 2 hippo cards, you take those 2 hippo cards, there'd be 2 cards going to be revealed. So you'd be excited to see what they're going to happen. After you've turned that over and you set it up for the next player to go, now you can do a defense phase. So what that means is that you can play resource or peril cards that are going to hinder the other person's progress. And I will go, now is the time I think I'm going to show you some of those, but just so you know, there isn't a whole lot of take that in this game. There's a little bit of it, but there isn't a lot of it, and that's something that I actually appreciate about the game. Too many times you play games that are just like completely take that, like, oh, here's this card, I'm going to take that from you. Here's this card, I'm going to make you lose your turn. Here's that card, I'm going to take away your points. There are some cards like that involved in these decks, but it doesn't overload the game. So let's take a look at some of these resource cards, and I'll just show you what you can expect to see when you collect these. So these cards, as I said, they have certain things like here's a giraffe card, and then it says move 1 bottom card to the top. Notice how that synergizes very well with the fact that when you have a situation where you've looked at the bottom of that deck and you want that card up on top, and you're able to do that. Here's an even more important card. You've looked at the bottom of a deck, play for the bottom card. You can go ahead and this is a bottom feeder that allows you to you've looked at the bottom of the deck, that card's really awesome, you want to go ahead and try to grab that. Here's a monarch card. So you've turned over you got done with the team after your phase 2. You can play this, and then you can take one of those face down cards. You might know what it is, you might not know what it is, but who knows? Or here's what's the card that you can use to bury those cards. You can bury 1 top card. So if there's something really good, the next player is going to really want it, you can mess with them and take that up. There's cards in the resource deck that will allow you to change one of your dice to a different roll. So if you need another green square, for example, or here's a rhino run, where it allows you to go for the commons and then roll some dice as well. So it doesn't limit you as far as that goes. So now these cards, as I said, they have all these different teams. Oh, here's an elephant. You can look at 2 bottom cards because an elephant never forgets, right? So like you can tons of different cards that allow you to change things up and alter the game in some way. And in my opinion, before you play the game, especially if you've played it and the other people haven't, take some time to go through the resource cards and just describe those different actions and different powers to people. So when they collect them, they'll know what they can expect, and they can also possibly expect what the other players are going to have. So here's some of the peril cards that allow you to mess with people. Here's a monkey that says move one card to another stack, transport the card. This is one of my favorite cards. This is one that says off limits. What that does is that it takes, basically, when you place it on top of one of these things, like maybe you don't want people to get a bunch of hippos, you can place it on there and that prevents people from doing it. Now this is the one that really messes with people. Here we have the man-eating plant, where you have to, if you play it on a player, they are going to lose one action during their action phase every single turn until they get rid of it. Oh, and also I love the quicksand card here. I'm just going to show that. When you play this on something, like you force the opponent to go for that card. They have to play for that particular card. Now, the thing I like, oh, and there is also these cards like this that allow you to take a card from an opponent, the scavenger card. But I want to talk about the man-eating plant really quick. So when you only have one action, you have a few choices. If you have 3 of a kind of these particular cards, you can turn them in to get rid of a man-eating plant. There is a army ant card here, I'll find it for you, that allows you to destroy the plant. That is, oh, and you can always, here, I do like that these not today cards, where if somebody tries to hurt you, you have a card that allows you to stop them from being able to do that. But you also, besides using that army ant card to eat the particular man-eating plant that's playing, you can here, there's that ant card where it gets rid of it gets rid of the man-eating plant. You can just choose to do nothing on your turn, and that will get rid of it as well. And sometimes you just have to do that because only having one action is really hurting you. Now, this is an ongoing card as well that you can play on yourself, where you're an explorer. It allows you to move one top card to an empty space. And you might be saying, well, how does that work? Well, these decks are going to get depleted in different phases. Like there's certain cards, and you're going to might be in a situation where like all of these cards are gone, and if you wanted to, you'd be able to like move a card over to that spot, revealing the next card down below that. So like it's one of those things where you want to be able to like have different abilities. And having somebody have an Explorer card is really powerful, but there are ways, and there's a card in here that allows you to break their binoculars so they aren't able to use that anymore. So knowing those cards exist, both the cards that allow you to do that and the cards that don't, once again, like I said, teach people how the game is played and so they know what's going on. So here's the Mystic Shaman card, just so I can show that to you. It is worth 3 points, and you'll notice how you have to roll 3 black circles in order to get it. And I'm going to go ahead. Oh, and like here's like tigers, you get to trade 3 for special. And so once again, fantastic art. I just loved the artwork, the nice bright looks to them. Oh, and here's like a mango fruit. These are the 2-pointers. So, but notice you have to roll 3 of a kind. Any 3 of a kind that allows you to it. So if you had that one card, remember the rolling 3 of a kind? If you had that card that I showed you that allows you to change 1 die, you then, when you rolled that, you could go ahead and do this, which would allow you to get that mango and have 3 of a kind. So the game lasts about a half an hour, and it's one of those games that it stays around for exactly the amount of time that I want it to stay around. One of the best things about this game is that it is easy to teach, it's easy to get people in on the game, but it isn't a simple game, right? It is a game that has very few rules, but a lot of depth to it, a lot of different cards, a lot of different things happening as the game progresses. And it's a challenging 2-player game, but it's also like when you expand it to 3 or 4 players, then it becomes really like fun trying to figure out what the other players are going to be doing, what their choices are going to be, what they're going to do on their turn to set themselves up to have the best possible turn they have, but also preventing you from having a turn as well. This is a game that has an economy of turns going on. Being only it lasts a half hour, you're looking at 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 turns of the game before somebody is going to be in a situation where they're going to be winning. And you want to make sure you maximize what you can do on your turn at any given time. But let me talk about all of that and a whole lot more in my final thoughts. There you go. You should know how to play Amazing Jungle Run now. And I didn't show you every single possible card that is in those decks. It would just take too long. I do invite you to go ahead and check out the Kickstarter page for this game, and also take a look at maybe like the rules of the game as well, and then you can dive further into all those different types of cards. But I think you should have a pretty good idea of how and what this game is. It is a game that is meant to be played very quickly, very fast, because like I said, the rules are pretty straightforward and you're able to figure those out pretty quickly. But it is also meant to be, you have to be paying attention to the game. This is not a game where if you're like sitting on your phone on your turn, you're going to miss out on what the actions people are taking, whether they're moving cards up or down, whether or not they're swapping different cards off to different sides of different parts of different stacks of the decks, those sorts of things. And you have to keep your eyes on the prize as well. You have to kind of keep track of where everybody is in like reference to the 9-point victory condition, and you need to be cognizant of how close somebody is. And it's one of those things where I was talking to the designer Keith actually, and I mentioned to them a few times where there is like an economy of your turns, and most games have an economy of turns as well. Like a game is a finite amount of time, right? And so when your first few turns are kind of building up and getting to the point where you want to be at, you have to make sure that those turns, you're not wasting turns. That's why that man-eating plant card is so devastating. And the thing is, there's a few of those in there. Nothing stinks more than having to give up your entire turn just to get rid of that card. So you have to kind of weigh, well, is it worth it just to take one action? But that one action is huge. Giving up that one action in your turn, you're basically being forced to maybe take a resource card, or you're being forced to like take a card, not peek at a deck underneath or something like that. And you need 2 actions to take a peril card, and peril cards are very, very important. So it is one of those cards where, is it worth it me just to forfeit my turn right now so I can make sure that all my turns afterwards I'm able to like keep moving and keep being like a viable possibility of winning still within reach. And so those are the things I really like about this game. And I already said the art is amazing. Basically the easy teaching of the game is something that I really, really appreciate. But I really appreciate the fact that I've been able to see this designer flourish with his first design, and actually now moving forward and building upon that and creating a game that like is not that his original game was bad by any means, but this game is so much better. And it's really exciting for me to be able to play this game and see the development. And then also, I just can't wait to see what they create in the future as well. So if you have any questions about Amazing Jungle Run, please ask away. I'll be happy to answer those as best as I can. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it. And until next time, I am the Undead Viking, and you're awesome. All right. Talk to you later.